Hi everyone, I'm Ollie Matthews. This is the Narcissistic Resistance, and this resistance video is sponsored by contribution from Anonymous, and here's her story. Dear Ollie, I've made a contribution to your PayPal. It's not much, but I'm on sick benefits at the moment with postnatal depression. It's probably not accurate to call it postnatal depression because it's more like post-emotionally abusive BPD mother depression. I would like to remain anonymous and have blocked out the names in my mother's letter. This channel has really helped me through some bad days, so thank you. Whenever I start to wander back into the fog, watching your video shakes me out of my childhood mindset and into reality. I have written this on an iPod because I don't have a computer, so I hope it's not too hard to read. I've been trying to be no contact with my mother since January, but she has stalked me in the supermarket, attempted to enter my house while I was out with an old key, cornered me and my in-laws when I was visiting, hand-delivered mail to my house, and sent me numerous letters. I have asked her to leave me alone, but she persists. My sister has given her the rather appropriate nickname, Psychotic Thunderfoot. Nice. Sorry. Since the hurricane, everything is still on the ground, all the pollen and the rotting palm, so affecting, everything affects Ollie's voice. So I have 2 kids and live a 15-minute drive from her. We are looking into relocating further away from civilization. I made the decision to go no contact after last year's Christmas drama went a step too far. I gave birth to my second child at the end of November. Towards the end of my pregnancy, her neediness was getting to me. She gave up her part-time job earlier in the year and was becoming increasingly focused on me. She started showing up at my house uninvited at inconvenient times, depressing me with her constant negativity. Any attempts I made to set boundaries were met with temper tantrums, and I would end up apologizing. I would often visit her to prevent unexpected visits. She would take care of my son roughly a day every fortnight when I was working. At this point, I knew my mother was an asshole when I was a kid, but I guess I just thought she had mellowed out. I didn't think of what happened to me as abuse. It's hard to explain to people with normal parents, but the fear I have of that woman is so deep, and I was gaslighted so much, I had no real sense of self. My pregnancy went 2 weeks overdue, and she insisted on coming over every day. This sounded like a caring gesture if you have a normal mother, but I would get no love or care from her. She would just sit there, eating lunch, drinking tea I made for her, doing absolutely nothing to help me, complaining about her various real or imagined illnesses, telling me every horror story about miscarriages, babies dying in car accidents and from illness, bringing up political subjects I had told her I didn't want to hear about, pressing all my buttons to get me stressed. She would try to draw me for information she could use on my partner, sister, dad, in-laws, etc., pressing and pressing. She started talking shit about my scapegoat sister, telling me she was jealous of me and my kids, that my sister tells her things and I don't know her like she does. All of this is bullcrap, of course. My sister and I are close, and this is a trigger for her because her sisters are close but haven't spoken to her for years. My sister has since also gone no contact with our mother. It started to get to me, though, because I was a bit vulnerable. Being over 9 months pregnant, it was the same tactics she has used on me my whole life. Poke at my trust in everyone I get close to, play on my insecurities to isolate me, and keep me weak and lonely. I'm the so-called golden child. But being this woman's golden child is no picnic. She's an emotional sadist. And it's funny It's like I said. Now your sister also went no contact. Now, did she go no contact before or after you? I'm wondering. She said also, so I'm imagining she went the same time, or maybe a little after you. Because if she has gone first and then your mother started vamping off you like that, that's her looking for a supply from anyone. But your mother is another one of these women that hates their own daughters. Sees everything as competition. This woman was trying to put you, she wasn't only trying to upset you, she was trying to get you to have a miscarriage. That's what she was trying to do. She was trying to sabotage your pregnancy, which is exactly what my parents tried to do when my ex-wife was pregnant with Aaron. Which again makes the situation all the more mind-blowing up there. I was starting to get migraines every time I saw her and was living with a painful tightness in my throat most days. After I had my daughter, I started dreading Christmas. We were due to go to my parents' house. The closer it got to Christmas, the worse I felt about it. I was dreading it. I realized I had a 2-year-old and a newborn, and I was worrying more about her feelings than my own, which is how you were trained to think. A couple weeks before Christmas, I sat her down and told her calmly I was staying at home and she was welcome to visit and see the grandkids. I apologized and explained it was because we were exhausted. She blew up into a tantrum, made a big drama, and stormed out saying quite cryptically, "You hurt me now." Her emphasis on the me was puzzling to me. So is it suggesting she was attempting to hurt me? No. Me. Like when they emphasize the me like that, just letting you know I'm God. I'm your deity. I'm the top of the food chain and you hurt me. That's them putting emphasis on who they are. That's the narcissist puffing their chest. That's the narcissist becoming God in their mind. Then when the narcissist is telling you, I'm God, that's what me is. And now you've sinned against me. You've made an offense against God. Me. That's what she was saying. We're not your family anymore. And then she said, and as she left, she said, we're your next of kin, meaning my dad and her, whether you like it or not. I'm not sure exactly what she meant by that. It's a veiled threat. Next of kin, meaning, in case you die. It's a veiled threat. I'm not married to the father of my 2 children, but we are cohabitating in the house and we bought together. Maybe she was having a go at me for not being married. I know she knows what next of kin means legally because I remember her talking about it years ago, and she loves to get legal. Okay. What she's saying is, if you die, because of this offense to me, you're out of the family. And if or when you die, he's not legal. And we're going to take your children. That's what she's saying. Anyway, this was the first time, and I didn't back down, possibly ever. I just let her have her tantrum and let her leave. After that, she started sending abusive texts, victimizing herself, saying my partner was controlling me, I was lost in his tunnel, and saying his mother was trying to shut her out of the family. This is what they do. When their tactics fail, they're going to blame your spouse and say you're being brainwashed and you're being controlled. I've seen this over and over and over again because you made an offense against me. I'm God. And now God's tactic didn't work on you. So there now must be an evildoer, a Satan, or even if this isn't in a religious context. This is how the narcissist sees themselves. You're under the spell of this evil. It's not me. You're just under the spell of this evil. This is how the narcissist works. And if you understand that your mother sees herself as a god, you'll understand it a lot better. And in her seeing herself as God, and God not being able to get what they want by their will, you must be under the control, the spell of some other evil she can point to. So she can still be all powerful. But anybody could be susceptible to an evildoer, which is what she's setting you up for. Okay, I was lost in his tunnel and saying his mother was trying to shut her out of the family. My mother-in-law in the weeks leading up to Christmas was out of the country, staying with her sister whose husband was dying. My mother was the last thing on her mind. I didn't respond to any of the messages. I was breastfeeding a newborn. I could barely manage to feed myself and shower. I just couldn't deal with her emotions anymore. And the thing you got to be careful for when they start setting you up like that, especially through text message, is they could be setting you up to send the police over, like on a welfare check, and start the ball rolling that somebody's being abused with a newborn. This is what you got to be very careful of. Christmas Day, my parents drove up to my house and went back home because they saw my in-laws' car outside. They made a big drama out of it, texting me a few times, blaming me and saying my mother-in-law did that on purpose to hurt them, that I was being disloyal to my family, etc. Their justification for this was that they wanted a time alone with their grandkids on Christmas Day. I texted my dad saying they were welcome to come here at any time. They refused. I would text my dad, believing him to be reasonable, but my mother would reply. I cried a lot that day. I knew in my heart I couldn't tolerate the drama anymore. I felt like I was at a funeral, not having my first Christmas with my new daughter. I knew how this was going to go. It was the same bullshit game we had been playing my whole life. My choices were: 1, pretend like nothing happened and be gaslighted into submission. 2, stand up for myself and suffer my mother's narc rage until she has confessed, scared and till she has me confused, scared and hysterically crying, at which point she would start manipulating me into thinking I'm crazy or depressed and that nobody in my life loves or cares about me, and how I should go home and live with her where she can bully me more efficiently. 3, shut the whole damn game down and go no contact. The final nail in the coffin came about a week after Christmas. I had been ignoring her messages because they were abusive and paranoid, not answering phone calls. My mother showed up at my door when my partner was at work. I was upstairs getting dressed with the kids, and all of a sudden, I heard someone banging on my window so hard, things were rattling in the house. I wasn't about to engage with her, and eventually they do show up banging on doors, because they will not be ignored. They will not be ignored. I wasn't about to engage with her. I thought she was going to break the window. My heart was pounding. My 2-year-old ran to the window before I could catch him and saw her car and wanted to open the door. I had to explain that Nana wasn't being nice, so we couldn't let her in. I drew the curtain. She banged on my window for more than an hour. I turned the TV up loud and got out some board games and Lego. I could see my 2-year-old was scared and he started pretending he couldn't hear the banging. I tried to explain and reassure him. I could see how much damage she could do to my kids right in front of me. A 2-year-old scared and pretending like his nana wasn't beating the window down because it was too traumatic and confusing to deal with. If I let this go, he would end up being gaslighted into pretending it didn't happen in order to maintain the peace with my mother. If I opened the door, I'd have to apologize and calm her down, or risk her escalating and getting physical, or pushing her way in. No, I would have went to the window and started recording her on your cell phone. That's what you should have done. Eventually, she drove away only to return to bang for another hour, and then again later that day for another hour. You should have been recording it and calling the police. Unfortunately, it would have been better, and I understand your child was there, but it would have been better to just call the police and have her removed than to have him traumatized for a couple hours. Might as well you wouldn't have to open the door. You just would have to call the police and say, I'm not opening the door. This person's banging on my house. Please get them away. And that would have been it. And I would have stood there recording. In the window, that would have been it. That would have been it. Eventually, she drove away only to return to bang for another hour, and then later that day for another hour. I should have called the police, but I was still stuck in the fog. She kept ringing the house phone and sending me a message saying, "Please let me in. I just want to talk." Yeah, that's what every mobster says. I think it was reasonable enough to assume the maniac pounding my window down and shouting to herself in the street doesn't just want a friendly chat. For the next couple months, my father came over every other week to see the kids and try to convince me to make up with my mother, i.e. accept her bullying. We had some honest conversations about how badly she bullied us when we were kids. I even had a panic attack and my throat closed up in front of him and I couldn't breathe when I tried to give him an example of how she would elicit fights over nothing and put me in a situation where I had no escape. My mother's specialty. She would grind me down for weeks on end over some imaginary slight I had made against her, or some attitude I apparently had. She would keep the bullying, raging, and silent treatment on a cycle until it got to the point where she could walk into my room and literally stand in the middle of the floor for 5 to 10 minutes saying nothing, and I would have to act like she wasn't there. Even if I said hello to her or looked at her, she would accuse me of snapping at her or being cheeky and blow up into a tirade of verbal abuse again. If I remained silent and still, she would just walk out. When she decided it was over, I had to pretend nothing had happened. She generally didn't get physical as long as you didn't try to maintain any boundaries. Maybe that's why I always got physical with me and my mother. I actually had to try to maintain a boundary. Even after telling my dad how I felt and what happened, he would turn up a few weeks later and seemingly have forgotten the conversation. He would start over again, trying to convince me my mother was the victim. It's interrogation tactics. This is how you get terrorists to talk. Like, you wear them down. Monotonous. You start like it didn't happen. Like, what? Gaslighting. You let your father come over and openly gaslight you. Hell no. Trying to convince me my mother was the victim. Get out. Just get out. He said he would try to get her to go to therapy, but as it turns out, he brought her to this kind of family relationship therapy called systemic family therapy, which specifically avoids dealing with the individual's issues and instead focuses on the relationships. Oh, great. That sounds wonderful. That sounds like the participation trophy of therapy. Here's a fucking part. Yeah, let's just talk about, the team and everybody gets a fucking trophy. God. Talk about checking the box. That's the enabler, just trying to check the box. Yeah, I got her to therapy. Yeah, it's you. Yeah, she's been to therapy. Yeah, what therapy? Oh, well, we don't really actually talk about what's wrong with her. We just talk about relationships. Like, wow. He tried to get me to see their therapist under the false pretenses that she was seeking help for her issues. I guess he didn't expect me to research the kind of therapy he chose. He also couldn't stop her from giving the game away by texting me abuse and sending me letters. He threatened court to look for visitation of the grandkids, hoping to scare me in submission. Right here, buddy. He tried everything from crocodile tears to outright aggression. He never validated what I had suffered. The best I got was once he said, "I'm sorry, I married a crazy woman sometimes." He was just bleeding me for information so that he could find a way to rope me back in. Then she would send me abuse with a twisted version of things I told him. He gradually stopped coming. Now he texts banal bullshit about the weather and shit every month or so. I don't reply. Good. I'm still looking over my shoulder every time. I blocked her number on my phone, but find myself occasionally checking my blocked calls and messages because I'm living in fear of her stalking me. If there's a knock at the door, I check my phone to see if she's been calling or texting before answering. It's so hard to go no contact when her contact can contain vital information about her state of mind and help me prepare for her next move. If she sends a letter or text, I know she'll be stalking a few days later, looking for the reaction to her message. I don't want her scaring my son, who is 3 now. By stalking me, she is managing to keep me focused on her, worried about her emotions still. I'm keeping evidence on everything just in case they try something legal, and it might help me to get a restraining order in the future. That's what I was going to suggest. That's why I told you when she was in the window, you should have been recording right there. Maybe I'll gain enough confidence with time and therapy to be truly no contact. I've attached one of her letters. This letter was a couple months after the lawn tantrum. Thanks again. Okay. Now this is the letter from her mother. Hope I'm not wasting my time and energy writing this letter. I don't give up that easy. See, I'm not that mad. See, she's a forgiving God. See? Do you understand what me means? She's a forgiving God. But a God that doesn't give up that easy and will always be there. But see, I'm not that mad. I'm not that bad. I'm a forgiving God. As long as you worship me. When the narcissist says me, look out. Telling your dad I have psychological problems serves no purpose. Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. It puts a name. It puts a name to the problem. So people could say, borderline personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder. Oh, these are the traits of it. Oh, absolutely, it serves a purpose. Naming the narcissist always serves a purpose. Why are you telling your dad? So he can't bury his fucking head in the sand. That's why. Don't we all? Don't we all what? Are mammies not allowed to have flaws? I mean, there's flaws, bitch, and then there's you. I mean, seriously. I mean, flaws? flaws, you are not qualified to say this. She's more qualified to say this than anyone. She was born by you, by your horrible fucking ugh. I think she's probably the most qualified to say this. What do you think? And who are you to pass judgment on God anyway? You're not qualified for that. Your dad and I are not using threats or emotional blackmail. Oh, sure, yes, you are. You are misunderstanding us. Your dad is acting on his own behalf, not on mine. He has had therapy too and sees things more calmly, more clearly now, and you will too. Oh, he went to cookie therapy as well. Was there nap time involved and all that, and everybody got a participation ribbon? There's nothing to be afraid of. There's nothing to be afraid of. She's a loving God. Do you not think that this was underhanded and dismissive of you to talk about your own mother in such a disrespectful way when I was not there? That is the point your dad is making, and you don't want to engage or talk with me about it. No. Calling you out for what you are is not disrespectful. This is the problem the narcissist has. Okay? The facts of your behavior don't give a shit about your feelings over being exposed. Your embarrassment over your exposure doesn't trump of what you've done. That's what the narcissist doesn't grasp. Because the narcissist thinks of me. I'm God. Even when I'm wrong, I'm still right. You say I can't be challenged, but when I challenge you about not getting some alone time with our grandchildren at Christmas in your house and ours, you estrange me from yourself and my grandchildren, and you stonewall your dad when he challenges you about it. Ask yourself why you are not being unreasonable. How you would feel if I estranged you when you said something I did not like. It's beyond things you don't. Why do you need alone time? What's wrong with your in-laws that you need all this alone time? That's the other funny thing about, because I get it, because my parents needed alone time with Erin too, not around my white trash in-laws. Again, makes that whole thing again all the more mind-boggling. Mind you, this is a woman who is trying to upset you to the point of miscarrying. Who cares what she thinks? You make willy-nilly assessments of what your dad and I think and assume that I orchestrate everything that happens. Your dad does not think what I said or what happened on Christmas Day warrants you estranging yourself and children from your own mother and their grandmother. Well, he's not the decider, is he? I'm sorry. Your dad, well, I'm sorry. My head enabler doesn't think I did enough to get estranged? Well, who fucking died and put him in charge of that decision? Nobody, but yet you think you have the right to make it. That's the narcissist for you. Your dad, because it's your father. Fuck that. They assume all this fucking royalty. They assume all this entitlement that they don't fucking have. He strongly believes, if he strongly believes, forget everything I just said. He strongly believes it. Strongly to believe he's an asshole and you're a cunt. That's what I strongly believe. He strongly believes that this is taking steps 10 steps too far. Your dad's family have their faults, but they don't estrange family members, and that is why he does not get your actions. All right, this is anonymous putting in here. It's worth noting that several of my dad's brothers. It's worth noting that several of my dad's brothers defrauded each other out of money, and one is a drug addict who serially abused and neglected our cousins, allowing his drug dealer to rape his teenage daughter is just an example. He was allowed to stay in our house after we knew all about this incident while I was still a teenager. Wow. Wow. That's some parenting right there. But that explains your father why he's such a bitch-made cuckold to your mother. Just go along. I mean, look at this. Your father obviously can't handle any conflict in his life whatsoever. I know people, I know plenty of people like that. My brother's one of them. Can't handle the conflict. Can't man up. So he'll say anything. He'll tell you the truth one minute and then go back and gaslight you the next. It's because they're spineless. No spine whatsoever. None. Your dad can't handle conflict in his personal life, and that comes from his baggage. You can't expect your dad to continue. So that's what she's telling you. Your mother's just told you this. He can't handle conflict. So she's telling you he will never back you up. Never. He will never back you up. You can't expect your dad to continue with the current arrangement to see your grandchildren and see his grandchildren and you. Everything is on your terms. He can't let you control who he decides to have or not have in his life, like his wife and your mother, and who he brings to your house and who he can't bring. What type of fool do you take your dad for? A pretty big one, because he stayed married to your fucking ratchet ass. Pretty big fool, to be honest with you. He stayed married to her, so he's a pretty big one. He knows his own mind. He has no mind of his own. His mind is your mind. His mind is whatever you tell him it is. Your dad and I don't ever claim to be perfect parents, but we did our best. They always did them their best. Yes, I was the bad cop because I was at home most of the time when he was away, and he was the good cop. Is that so bad? You have put 100% of the blame on me over Christmas, and unfairly so. I apologized to you long before I sent any letter by text. All right, this is anonymous again. The text read, "I'm sorry I hurt you. Hope we can get back what we had. Miss you." It was sandwiched between abusive, angry messages a few days before and directly after. Yeah, it was just a grooming tactic, and when she doesn't get it, they go right back. But she remembers, but God remembers she said it. So, there's the goal. I apologize. See, there it was. Doesn't matter. It was sandwiched between, 37 fuck yous and go eat your own ass. Okay, that doesn't matter. She said I'm sorry in between, the litany of fucking hate bombs that come. But she said the word, so it doesn't really matter. Context never matters with the narcissist. I don't know whether you got that text. It's kind of hard. Well, I got the other one, all the hate texts, so why not this one? So she's acknowledging that she sent you this fucking hate. All this hate, basically. And she's acknowledging it, but you still have to accept the I'm sorry. Wow. Oh, this is borderline personality disorder. This is a monster. This is a borderline monster. Texts are not the best way to communicate, but what choice did I have? You send enough of them. We want to have family therapy so as you can tell me what exactly this is about, past, present, or whatever, with the help of a qualified therapist, and for me to engage with you and maybe your sister and your dad. whatever you want so as to get our family back. Is this not what you want to? Is this not what you want to? It is not to fix my flaws and baggage. It is to facilitate communication and understand what is the cause of this mess. I will challenge all four of us. Do you think it's not worth a try? No. No. You won't even acknowledge you're the problem. You're going to go in there trying to convince your two daughters they're the problem. No. No. She will never. Any therapist she's going to agree to she's going to be one she's paying for. And anyone she's paying for isn't going to tell her she's the fucking problem. I never claimed to be easy to live with, but am I that wicked that I can't see my grandchildren? Yes. I say yes. Every family has conflicts. Surely a family accepts the worst and best about each other like no one else does. This is a nightmare for all of us. You have a family that cares about you and you want to throw it all away. At the end of the day, you're isolating yourself and the children from their grandparents and creating a barrier between your dad's extended family and my own now that I have reconciled with my sister. This is anonymous again. She hasn't spoken to her entire family for almost 20 years and sabotaged the few relationships we had with our dad's family, who she shit talks all the time. I don't think you have considered the consequences of your actions for the future. We have come up with everything to solve this, and you have come up with nothing other than to keep the shutters down and blame. If you want, you can come up with some suggestions and get yours and your sister's partners to help. The only reason I got your sister involved after Christmas was because the therapist asked me to get her to help resolve this. This is going to affect her too. There was no other ulterior motive. She suggested I apologize to you as for my part as it was doing my head. Wait. She suggested I apologize to you for my part as it was doing my head in a text. Your sister does not answer the phone to your dad now. There is one thing you and me have in common, and is that we both overanalyze things. Don't do that. Don't try to say we're the same. I have said all I'm going to say, and your dad too. Is that not better than closing the shutters? It's up to you now. Thanks again, Ollie, for everything you do. Anonymous. And you notice at the end here, one of the last lines, she lets you know the therapist suggested the apology is not even from her. Somebody suggested her she apologize in text. So it's not even she meant it in the litany of hate text that she dropped the apology in between. Somebody had to tell her to apologize. It wasn't even real. What are you going to accomplish in therapy with this? Because you're not only going to therapy with her, it's with it's her, the father, who's going to be enabling her. No. These people are nowhere near changing. She's still gaslighting you asking you to go to therapy and gaslighting you at the same time. Not only do you have to accept her shitty apology, she lets you know it wasn't even her fucking idea to apologize. What a peach. What a monster. This is borderline personality disorder. This is how it works. This is why, and this is purposeful. This is calculated. Everything your mother's done her entire life and everybody she manipulates, she plans it, she calculates it because she benefits off of it and from it. She sees herself as God, as most borderlines do, in my opinion. And she will control everyone and anything to get her way. That's what borderline monsters do. That's the reality. And when you slight them, look out. then you've slighted God. You need to be punished. And if their advances don't work on you, it must be because you're under the spell of someone else. You can't win for losing. What, in God's name, is therapy going to accomplish with these people? Because not only your mother, it's your father too. It seems like you're much happier away from them. You talked about relocating further away, and I say the further, the better. The only way you win is not to play. Monsters, not victims, borderlines. The group therapy is hilarious. The therapy where you don't talk about your issues, your personal issues, just a relate. Wow, can you do some blame shifting and projection in that one? Wow, nobody's to fault for anything. Perfect type of therapy. Perfect. All right, so thank you so much for your contribution, Anonymous, and your story. I really appreciate it. I hope it helps. Thank you to everybody watching. Please leave any opinions or advice in the comments section below. And again, if you want your story read on the channel, you have a topic you'd like me to cover, a narcissist you'd like to expose, you'd like to set up Skype, a phone call, have a private video made, or a Facebook live chat, or you'd like to sponsor a video for someone who needs help and can't afford it, or just make a contribution to the channel in general, that's always great. Keep the lights on, because the channel is still sponsored 100% by contributions from you guys. So you know what to do with the PayPal and email links in the description box. And if you're still unclear, wait for the video link to pop up on the screen at the end of this video to walk you through all of that. Please like and share this video wherever you can. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and be sure to click the subscription bell to be notified of all my video uploads. I'm Ollie Matthews. This has been the Narcissistic Resistance. Take care.